Tonight's guest has spent her entire life walking between the two worlds, and for years she had to pretend she couldn't. What she shares tonight may change the way you think about what's possible. Welcome back to The Common Historian, where history meets the supernatural. I'm Jeremy, the Common Historian, and each week we explore the haunting intersections between our past and the paranormal. Tonight, I'm joined by medium Morgan Caldwell, who has spent much of her life navigating a gift she once tried to keep hidden from the world. So grab your favorite beverage, dim the lights, and prepare to journey into the world where history refuses to stay buried. Welcome, Morgan. How are
Hi,
you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. It's been a crazy day, but most days are crazy. So
Yeah,
very excited to chat with you tonight.
I'm excited to
Um,
be here. Thank you for asking me to be on.
Oh, no problem. So, when did you first realize that you were experiencing something that, not everybody else was experiencing?
I would say my earliest one I can remember, I was about 3 and I would ride my little rusty tricycle out in the backyard, and then there would be a little kid riding next to me with a bright red tricycle. I knew nobody else could see them, but I would just play with them. I never really spoke to them. We just would play together. But when it really sunk in was when my grandfather passed away, and he came to me when I was sleeping and he said that he was fine and I just wouldn't be able to see him anymore, but that he was okay. And then when I got woken up the next day, I was told that he passed that night.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's sad, but at least he wanted to make sure that you knew that, you know, he was all right.
Yeah, which is interesting too, because he's not a spirit that comes around often. I would say,
Oh,
because he passed when I was in middle school, and I would say he's only come around 2 or 3 times. And I'm almost 40, so he doesn't come around often.
yeah. Now, when was it that you kind of decided that you wanted to embrace your gifts and kind of, learn more how to use them and expand them?
I suppressed them a lot. I would have periods when I would try to work with them again, but I didn't know who I could talk to try to figure it out. And you know what it's like looking things up online. It can sometimes be a cesspool. You never know what you're going to get. So
Yeah.
when I really started to embrace it was about 3 years ago. I just decided, I'm just going to go through it. I know I'm supposed to use it to help people because the close people that I did let know about it were able to validate the things that I got and helped me build my confidence a bit. I decided to go to paranormal conventions 3 years ago. And from there, I just started meeting people because I would stop at tables and I would introduce myself and just talk to people. And I would start doing readings as I was going through there, which kind of helped build my confidence, but also kind of get me out of my shell a bit because I'm extremely introverted and shy.
Yeah. Well, I've been told that the conventions that a lot of times, if you're introverted, you can really open up there because it's very in a very accepting place.
It is, yeah.
I've
You can
never
also,
been, but
oh, you haven't?
no, I've never been to, but I know we're both going to Vermont, the
Yeah,
Vermont one. So we'll chat about that a little bit later, but that'll be
yeah.
my first. So,
That's exciting.
oh, yes, I'm very excited. So, how would you describe what you do to someone who has never encountered a medium before?
That's a good question. That is a good, well, I do two things. So I read cards, I read oracle cards, but I don't read the typical way. The way I read makes no sense. I have people shuffle them, completely spread them out in circles, and they'll have pictures. I don't always look at the pictures, but it usually will tell people what's going on with their lives. And it's not always people that I know, it's people that I don't know. And if there's certain questions that they want, I can use the cards to help ask them, but I also sometimes have spirit come through. So their past loved ones. Sometimes, honestly, it's just like a spirit that may be in their house that sees what's going on, that tells me different things. I don't know how else to work. I mean, it's to people who aren't used to it. I mean, it's not a scary thing. I don't tell people bad things because I don't feel like that's my place. So if
Yeah,
there's maybe some words that people might find upsetting, I take the message and try to work with spirit to get it to come out as nice as it possibly can, but still give the message. Because sometimes I do poke at people's what I call shadows, some darker times that they've had in their lives, and it's never intentional. And I get a certain feeling, which I can't even explain. It's just a feeling I know when I feel whatever it is, because I can't even describe it. I know that it's going into a place that could possibly be upsetting. So I say, is it okay if I go further? And I try to ease into it. And sometimes there'll be the touchiest subjects, like very intense trauma from childhood, from different points in their life. But everyone that I've given messages like that, it may be a little jarring sometimes to begin with, but it's also kind of a relief because I feel like in a way I help people with trauma just because sometimes when you bring it to the surface, it helps you release it because you have to face it and it makes people lighter. I speak with spirit. I give messages sometimes that you want, sometimes that you don't. And I generally try to help heal in any way that I can with the messages that I get.
Oh, that's great. I know when I was speaking with Blaine Rowan,
Mhm.
he told me that I needed to be read by you. That's what he told me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting. Well, we'll be in Vermont. I typically do just start reading people at conventions.
Yeah. So, because I think that's what we were chatting about. And he says, oh, when you meet Morgan, you need to have her read you. I'm like, okay. So I think you kind of, my next question I had was kind of walk me through what actually happens when you receive information.
Mhm.
And I think you kind of covered that. Is there
Oh,
anything else you wanted to add?
so I'm one of those that you may notice it when we're at the convention. I love going to people, anybody who has any form of ability, skeptics, everybody. I love to pick their brain because there's so many interesting things, but also people get messages. I'll say messages because there are people who get it from spirit, but they're like, oh no, I don't have abilities. But I'll just say people who get messages, they all get them different ways. So sometimes I will see spirit in the room. A lot of the times it's as if I'm astral projecting to whatever the location is, if I'm doing it remotely. And it's as if I'm walking through the house there in person.
Wow.
The big thing that's for me, and I haven't come across too many people who do it, at least not as constant as I do, is pop culture references. But if you could see all the stuff behind me, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just pop culture references. I will get scenes from movies, I will get song lyrics, I will get clips from TV shows, a random character will pop in, but it all seems to somehow tie into whatever the general message is. Sometimes it's like photographs, sometimes it's like the person is just standing right there. Sometimes it's like movies, but specifically from another pop culture reference, the Wonder Years in the opening, like the old home movies. Sometimes it
Yeah.
looks like that.
Oh, that's it makes sense though that they would come out that way, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, is there a difference between connecting with a spirit that passed recently versus one that's gone for a long time? Is there any difference in that, or I'm
Um,
just very curious about that.
Well, nobody's an expert, so everybody has their own opinions, obviously. I would say mine is a working theory because when I practice with Nate, where he's in New Hampshire and I'm here, he doesn't tell me a thing. He just has a place. And there's a certain one, I don't know the place because I was stuck only in one certain part of time. And he's like, I didn't research that far back for the land, but from the information that you've given me, it tracks with pre like the prehistory before where I started my research. He said, so I'm going to have to go back. But the one thing about the two people I kept seeing in this house, I couldn't see their faces. They wouldn't show me their faces. But there's so little documentation. So part of me is starting to wonder if have you ever seen Coco, the Disney movie Coco?
I think not overly familiar, but I think I've watched it before.
So it's basically honoring your family and like having photographs out, just talking about your family. And I feel like that does kind of help spirits stay alive. So if their family's long gone, if there's nobody remembering them to a certain point, part of me feels like I feel like part of them fades a bit. They may not be as strong. As opposed to if you think of the spirits at like these super haunted locations that people hear about, people know the names of the spirits, people know the history. Certain places like that have so much activity. But also, I don't know, I feel like it's not necessarily how long someone's been passed. I feel like a lot of it has to do with how much memory is left of them.
True. Yeah, that theory makes sense. If they're not remembered, then they're almost like they're starting to fade away. Maybe I don't.
No, it makes sense, especially where, like I said, where this place that we had to pause the practice because I couldn't get past it. I'm like, nope, there's something about this place. And what I could tell him, he did find stuff and it made sense, but I couldn't see their faces. So it makes sense. So another thing too, which I think also helps it, I'm not sure if you've ever had a reading, but sometimes when people have readings, if it's a spirit reading, super strong spirits will come through, but they also help guide the spirits that are not able to come forward on their own necessarily with the energy that they need to get their message on their own without one of them help guiding them there. So I feel like that kind of tracks with it too. That the fading, as you said, it kind of makes sense in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, that does make sense. I've never been read before. So,
Oh, okay.
another question I had was, have you ever received information that you don't understand at the moment, but it kind of only makes sense to the person that's you're reading?
A lot of it doesn't make sense to me, and a lot of the times I'll be like, "This sounds weird." And my least favorite is when it sounds so cliche, and I'm like, I hate how cliche this sounds, but a woman's coming. I hate the cliche messages, but they always make sense. But sometimes when I give messages to people, they don't make sense to them. But I'll get a message like a month later, a year later. Do you remember this thing that you said? And I'm
And
like,
then
no, I have no clue. Because one thing about me, it's not my information. So unless it's something that was completely like out there, or the person was completely shocked that I got something, or they remind me themselves, I don't remember a single reading because it's not my information to hold on to.
when I went to Wilson Castle in October, the whole castle, I was perfectly fine. I went to the second floor to the pink room. I don't know if you've been there before, but there's a
Yep, I
pink
was there
room.
last year.
And as soon as I walked in to the room itself, it felt like really, really, really heavy.
Mhm.
Then my daughter wanted a picture. She had heard the stories about the closet.
Mhm.
And so she was wanting me to take a picture of inside the closet. She didn't want to go inside the closet of that pink room.
Yeah.
So I went in there, and as soon as I walked in there to take the picture, like it got even worse. I almost couldn't breathe. I felt like I couldn't breathe.
Mm.
And I quickly like snapped the picture, and I had to get out of the whole room. And as soon as
Yeah.
I
That's
walked out of that room, everything was fine.
interesting. Yeah.
It was weird. I've had a couple other experiences too, but that was probably the most profound one. That it was just out of the blue. And I used to live in a haunted house, so you know, I've seen full body apparitions. You know, I've seen a
Yeah.
little old lady a couple times. I saw a lady in white. So you know, I've seen these things that I know some of the investigators had never even seen a full body apparition. I've seen like at least two to three.
Yeah. I feel like they're kind of rare.
I've seen two or three. So it's something I think I might have something, but I really don't know.
I'd say you probably do, but I'm also curious. The full body apparitions that you saw, did anybody else see them, or were you the only one?
My wife did see another one that I didn't see.
Mm.
Um, in the house because we lived there for 2 years. There was a guy with well, she saw a man walk up on the porch with a red coat, and she thought it was my or her Uncle Joey.
Mm.
Well, when she said, "Oh, Uncle Joey's at the door," so I went to the door, opened it up. No one was there, but she
Yeah.
swears she saw that. She's the only other one that saw anything. But the little old lady that I saw her two or three times in 2 years. I didn't see her all the time, but I did see her two or three times. And one time I thought, because my wife's grandmother lived with us,
Mm.
I thought that and my daughter was a baby, so she was sleeping in the bedroom. I thought when I walked in the room, I said, "Oh, Grandma, you're checking on Jazzy."
Yeah.
And I got to the crib, and there was no one there, but I saw the whole. It looked like a little old lady,
Yeah.
and I saw her a couple other times throughout that.
Yeah.
But who knows? I'm not really sure what if I am or not, or if I have anything or not. But it's just
I feel like
different weird things.
yeah. I feel like everybody's gifted to a point. It's just whether you want to embrace it.
So where did I leave off my questions? Of course, got on a little tangent there. Have you ever been, you know, have you ever been wrong when you've told somebody something, or maybe you weren't wrong, but they were not willing to admit that?
everybody has points that they're wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm sure there is, but there's definitely been a couple readings I know that they made sense, but the person did not want to be like, "Oh yeah, no, that makes perfect sense." But then, seeing people online, if there are personalities online, you see them post something, and it's like, I so that you asked earlier, things I remember. If there are things that people say no and I feel it and I know that it
Oh,
is
that's
true,
right.
I will remember that part of my reading. And so when that pops up on my news feed or any of the apps, and I'm like, ah, that's what I was talking about. But there are times that I'm wrong, yes.
Yeah. And I think, we're all human. We're all sometimes wrong. But,
Yeah.
I have a feeling that you probably have those instances where you've told someone they don't want to hear it. So they say you're wrong. But
Yeah, I did one house party and this one woman just kept telling me no, and she was like a brick wall. She wanted to hear certain things, didn't want to hear what I said, and then the host talked to her after and she was like, "Well, how was your reading?" She was like, "Oh, she told me absolutely everything that's going on in my life, but it's not the information that I wanted." But she wouldn't tell me that. And so the host was like, "Yes, but she's never met you before. So how would she be able to tell you all of this information about your work, your relationship, everything that's going on in your house?"
yeah. Now, have you been to, I know you've been going to a few places with Nate.
Mhm.
What have you been to any like battlefields or any historic places?
We actually met on the USS Salem, which I believe is like the only Navy ship that's not been in battle. But they
Yeah.
had interesting spirits there. We went to, I forget what the college is in New Hampshire, but I think the Oceanborn Mary, that woman,
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
buried at the cemetery there.
Yeah.
But I don't know the history because I go in blind. I don't want to know the history. So
Yeah.
Nate's the one that does that. So I don't even remember the names half the time. We've been to Wilson Castle. And then we're going in June actually to Broadhead Manor in Wisconsin.
Yes, that should be fun. There's so many places I wanted to go this year. I just can't afford them.
Yeah, so we're going to I had to write it down because I always get the name wrong. The Broadhead Beard Brawl in June. And I can't wait because I've read it remotely when Nate was there last year without knowing anything. And he
Oh,
told the owner, Bill, everything that I got. And Bill is like, yeah, you guys are both coming next year.
that's why Nate has the beard, isn't it, right now? He's
Yep.
growing his beard.
Yep.
I really need to shave too. I haven't shaved, but anyway, what my point I was going to get to, when you're at a historically significant location, do you experience things differently than in like a private residence?
Not really.
No.
I would say if anything in like the historical places, I just want to touch everything and you're not allowed to.
No.
Because sometimes I do psychometry, so I just really want to touch things and that's a no-no.
Yeah, they don't like you to touch some of the old artifacts.
Yeah.
We must have had a field day at Wilson's Castle because they have a lot of old things there.
Yeah.
So, kind of in your opinion, do you think certain periods of history leave a stronger imprint on places?
I'm not sure about certain periods. I would say, like you asked earlier about like battlefields and everything. Obviously, there's going to be a huge imprint there, but sometimes I feel like it also depends on like the actual land itself, certain stones, certain things that hold on to it. If there's water there, because water also is, in my opinion, it magnifies energy to a certain point. But I wouldn't say necessarily certain points in time, more so the land.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like Gettysburg, that definitely has an imprint. There's many anywhere a tragedy has happened. I believe that. I think a lot of those hauntings though are more residual than they are intelligent.
Yeah,
You know,
I could see that. But I feel like even the residual ones, though, I feel like if I or anybody with abilities really tried to push to communicate, if they're in the moment of because with residuals, and I could be wrong, I feel like a lot of that they're like in a loop,
yeah.
which could be hard to break. But actually, I don't know. I feel like now I'm going to have to test myself one of these days. I want to get to Gettysburg eventually.
Oh, it's on
But
my bucket list too.
yeah, no, I've always been interested because my dad very much believed in past lives, and he passed years ago, but he had printouts of all the soldiers' names, and he actually picked my brother's name because he thought that was his name when he was in battle at Gettysburg. So that's how he picked
Oh,
my brother's name.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because Gettysburg is the one that definitely I want to go to. There is a few, the battlefield itself, just because I love history. And also, there's some places in Gettysburg that I really would really like to visit the Jenny Wade house, the Farnsworth,
Yeah.
just to name a couple. There's tons of them, I think, there, but just off the top of my head. Oh, okay. So, from your perspective, and we just kind of went into this a little bit, what do you feel is the difference between a residual and an intelligent haunting? Uh,
Well, intelligent, I feel well, that would bring up a whole other discussion. So intelligent, I feel like they're there whenever they want, but also they don't have to stay in whatever house, whatever land they typically haunt. If they're intelligent, I feel like they have the possibility to hop through portals and just show up wherever they choose. Residuals, I would say, are more tied to that land, not necessarily that they're completely stuck there, because I feel like it's mostly a choice that spirits are there, because I feel like once well, I don't know if I'm going to ruin any other questions, but I have a belief on my theory of what you go through when you pass and why spirits
Oh, you
linger.
can go into it. If it's
Um,
one of my future questions, I will just skip over it.
oh, okay. So my theory and my belief is that when you pass, you go through basically a life's review. I'm not sure if I necessarily believe in heaven or hell, but I do believe that you have to face the choices that you made, how you lived life, and how you treated people, and get an actual look at it, because sometimes you don't see what you're doing, how you're acting in your own perspective. So it's more like you're reviewing it from as an outsider's point of view and seeing how you truly lived your life. But I feel like you can't truly cross over unless you go through the review. So that's why I say that I feel like a lot of the times spirits, I feel like it's kind of a choice, at least the ones that don't leave locations. Because for some reason they're choosing to be there, even if it's just residual, even if it's they're in there, one of those like, and I can't remember the exact word, but like the loop that I mentioned. I feel like part of it, even if it's just trauma that happened to them, they just haven't dealt with that trauma once that they pass. So they're in a sense, even if it's them trying to protect themselves, in a sense, they're still choosing to stay as spirit.
And I also wonder if that's almost like with a residual haunting, maybe that's their personal hell.
It could be.
They're
Yeah.
repeating that same moment over and over again for
Yeah.
eternity.
True. It could be.
I have some weird theories as well sometimes.
Yeah. You'll have to tell me some in Vermont.
So, how do you approach working alongside traditional, well, paranormal investigators who rely on equipment rather than intuition? So, I think probably Nate uses some different, but he uses some more holistic methods as well, not just modern equipment, I believe.
Right. He does use a lot of those electronic doodads that I couldn't tell you a single name.
How do you work with Nate when doing kind of investigating, or, you know, you guys do
Um,
the remote stuff?
so remote, he searches and he just picks a place. He just says, okay, start. I go from there.
Oh,
I don't know a location, I don't know a time period, and he's made the mistake in the past of looking at 3 locations prior to a phone call, and he's like, "Okay, start." And I'll say, "Okay, I'm gonna let whoever comes forward come forward," and I'll start talking to spirit, and I'll start giving stuff, and he's like, "That's not the location I want." And I was like, "Well, whose fault is that? Because you picked 3 locations, and I like to let spirit decide who's talking." But as far as in person, he has his equipment. I don't know how any of that works. I've just got my cat ball and my little Freddy Krueger music box thing that's motion censored. That's all I use.
oh, I think
But
that's pretty cool. That Freddy Krueger box is pretty cool. I think I've seen that maybe
yeah,
on.
I believe it is Ghost Hunters store that I bought it from, possibly. I could be completely wrong. But no, so what we do is I'm like, okay, well, I'm feeling this over here. And I will I'll ask him where he wants to put equipment, but I'm like, no, if you want to catch stuff, we're going to put equipment over there. So you just figure out what equipment, because this is the type of spirit I'm feeling. And I don't know if you've heard in previous podcasts, we were talking about Salem. Like he has this awesome footage that he's not released yet,
Heard
but
about
it's
it.
all, yep. But it's because we went upstairs and I was like, nope, not this room. Cause I felt it on the other side and there happened to be a portal because I could feel it and it was the back wall to the mirror. I was like, you're going to put it across from the mirror because spirit comes out of here and you're gonna catch some activity. And it started with them touching the motion sensor music box, and then we saw the shadow on the gold wall, exactly where I said it was going to happen. It's just I don't know what to put there to catch it and to get the activity that other people need.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, yeah, you said you're not very familiar with the names. I'm learning them. I don't know them all, but I know the
Yeah,
basics.
I know.
Some of them make a lot of noise.
Yeah, I have a new toy that Nate got me that I need to try out. It's a teddy bear that Alan Rex made. It's I forget what it's called, but it's basically like one of those little teddy bears. So like the little kids can come up and touch it,
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the what exactly.
like a boo buddy almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Why can't I think of what the official name of it is? As I said, I'm still learning all the equipment because I'm actually going on my first ghost overnight, May 16th at the Wildwood. So
Oh, that should be
Wildwood
fun.
Sanitarium. Can't wait. It's gonna be
Yeah,
exciting.
not gonna lie, I've never heard of it. That's why
Wildwood
it's so.
Sanitarium. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it's in southern New York, near the
Oh, okay.
Pennsylvania border. So
Okay.
I won't say no more because I know you don't like to know the history of anything or any of that, but
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that. It's going to be I've already, like Nate, I like to research the history going in. Who I'm bringing with me, the Misfits Paranormal Crew, they don't like to know anything going in.
Yeah.
So I want to see the history I know and what, possibly they find when they go in there. So it's going to be fun.
That should be interesting too, because I don't know. I don't think I've asked Nate like, what do you think about it when I say things and it's true? I think he's just used to it at this point, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's got to be neat though to see somebody, if you're not like really familiar with it, if they can just tell you things
Yeah.
without looking into anything.
Yeah. And one of them on their team is a medium. So it'll be fun to find out what they, because I told them, I said, well, I think they give a tour at the beginning. And they said, oh, well, we take the tour because they like us to take the tour. But we don't always pay attention too much to, to the
Yeah.
history of it. Now, have you ever had, well, I imagine you have because you and Nate, and actually, I don't know why I put that question down. Anyway, impressions confirmed by evidence gathered from equipment on the same investigation. And I think you kind of answered that with what you and Nate did for Salem. That's going to be released
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah. We also got it. I think we might have recorded it. We did a college event that Tom Donahue invited us to that we did with Candy and Derek Fetters, the Paraclauses.
Yeah.
And we had a bunch of college kids and we all had our own groups that we were doing stuff. And we had one group of girls that we were, I think it was mostly girls. It might have been boys too, but we had one big group with us in the carriage house. And I was like, okay, I had, so two equipment at once. Yeah. So I had one first, my Freddy one kept going off every time I got near, like trying to walk near it, even though it was in a different room because somebody was playing with me. But then I finally moved it next to some light up thing that Nate has. I don't know, it's square, it lights up. But they were near each other, not close enough where they set each other off because they weren't going off on their own. But there was someone doing Estes down the hall, and I was saying things that they were then confirming through the Estes. But then at the same time, both machines were going off in the hallway near us. I believe we have footage of that, but I've not investigated that often, but I've heard it's not often for equipment to actually do that, for things to sync up like that and go off exactly at the same time.
Yeah. I don't think that's common. Of course, we're talking, you're very new to investigating. I'm very new to investigating. So unfortunately, I'm not overly big help for that.
I mean, I don't really know what I'm doing either. Like I said, I just point and I'm like, yeah, stuff over there would be great.
So, but yeah. Now, kind of looking at, skeptics are a real part of the world. How do you respond to someone who tells you straight out that what you're doing isn't real?
I mean, it used to bother me. Now if they don't think it's real, I don't really have to prove anything to them. That's fine. I'm also a huge skeptic. Honestly, if people tell me that they have abilities, only if I'm like approaching them for a reading. I could get things for myself. It's just I don't read myself. So the rare times I do want a reading, I approach them extremely skeptical, the way I would expect people to approach me for a reading.
Yeah,
I don't believe you do anything unless you can prove it to me, which might kind of be a jerk move, but like I said, I imagine people approach me that way.
yeah, yeah. And I try to be as skeptical as possible. You know, yes, I've seen stuff. I know there's stuff out there, but do I
Mhm.
believe everything is paranormal? Everything that I don't know how to explain it, but there's certain things and certain aspects of the paranormal that
Hmm.
I question. That
Yeah.
if do I really believe that, or I'm always skeptical. But if I see the evidence and I feel that it's you know strong evidence, and that's where I like to connect the history to the evidence, because to me that kind of validates it.
It does. No, I get that. But also, I understand the skepticism thing because I don't think every sound, every door opening is necessarily a ghost. I mean, you have to look at the house too. You have to look at the environment, see if there was wind, was a window open that could have caused a breeze that could have made the door. I'm extremely skeptical, even though I'm not I shouldn't be skeptical, but I am. But I feel like you have to be skeptical because not everything's a ghost.
No, not everything
Not
is.
everything's spirit.
And especially if you're in an old place, sometimes it's just the floor settling. Or
Yep.
on my other channel, I have three channels. Only my main channel, this one here, is the one I focus mostly on, but I have to, like, I call it my side projects. And I just launched a third one. It's called Common Haunts, and I'm going in. The first episode was, why does everyone see ghosts on stairs? You know,
That's a good question.
and I look at it from the paranormal, the psychological,
Mhm.
the architectural. It was very interesting, but I did, and I'm going to each week ask a different question and try to answer it in those four different ways.
Oh, it
Uh,
is. It's a cool concept.
the One of the things that I did learn in researching that
Mhm.
is that on the paranormal side, one of the reasons is because a lot of times in the olden days, you would die in your bed upstairs. Your last, your body would be carried downstairs. So a lot of times, the impression, you know, your last, that was one of the theories on the paranormal side as to why
Yeah.
people see, or there's so many reports of that. But anyway, now, do you think science and mediumship are destined to stay at odds, or is there room for the two to kind of meet?
I wish there was a way to bridge the gap because where I am so skeptical, I want that evidence.
Yeah,
Because even even if you believe in yourself, even if you have the confidence, there should still be that thing, but you should still question how, why is what I'm getting actually what I'm getting. I wish science was caught up with it, or there was a way that they could actually show people getting things, how they get them, to show how the brain works. The only thing I saw that was somewhat close, but I don't know if it would technically be science as far as it is more just being able to visually see it, is the thermal camera on that episode of I always get the shows, the one with Jason Hawes. But I did watch a few episodes in that one when there was an older gentleman that was a medium and he was trying to read Jason. And you could see Jason was blocking it. He wasn't going to let that medium read him. And on the thermal camera, you can see there's basically like a wall. And he's like, "You're blocking me. You have to let me come through." And he was like, "Okay." You see him basically lower the wall and you see the thermal camera change from the older gentleman that was reading him going towards Jason as he was actually allowed to get information. So there's ways to do it. It's just I don't know if science necessarily wants to prove it, but with
yeah,
everything coming out that like all these documents that are being released and how they like train people to not astral project, what is it, remote viewing that they
yeah,
release documents
yeah,
about, which
yeah,
in my opinion it's the same thing. Maybe we are heading more towards having science look more into it and figure it out.
yeah.
Hopefully.
But so we are both. I know you're going. I'm going to the Vermont Horror, Fantasy, and Sci-Fi Expo, which it's April 25th and 26th at the Champlain Valley Fair in Vermont. You and Nate will be there.
Yep.
From what Nate tells me, we're going to be right next to each other for our booths. It'll be a fun weekend. My daughter's coming. She's going to be there to kind of hang out when I go wandering off at times,
Nice.
or when I'm going to be hosting the panels there. What do you and Nate have planned for that event?
I'm not sure. I'm just there with Nate.
Oh, you're just there when they.
Yeah. So I'll probably just wander around and meet people and probably touch some spooky things if they're there. because I always ask to boop noses of haunted objects. It's my weird thing. Might end up reading people. I don't know. I'm not sure Nate's plans for the convention.
Okay.
I'm not sure yet if he's speaking or if we just have the table.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that as of the taping today, I'm hosting the panel, but I don't know everyone that's going to be on the panel yet.
Yeah, I noticed they didn't release any names. It just has the times.
Yeah, so I'll be hosting. I guess there was a lot of interest, is what I've been told, and that as we get closer, they'll be finalizing. So it might not be, it might be certain amount of people for one day and a certain for the other.
Yeah.
I'm not 100%. Anyway, I'm hosting both,
Yeah.
so I'll be there. But I think it's going to be fun. My stickers, actually, where did I put those? They just came in today. I bought stickers. I think, you know, I don't know if we can see, but I got little stickers to give away to
Oh, nice.
there. Thank you, Nate, for the idea. I spoke with him a couple weeks ago, and I said, "Oh, that's a good idea. I think I'm going to order some." So I got, I ordered some stickers with my branding. So give away to the kids and whoever else wants them.
Yeah.
But I think it's, yeah, I think it's going to be really fun. I'm not huge into the kind of the sci-fi. I think there's going to be some people from like Babylon and fans of that. Don't Babylon 8, 9, something like that. Don't hate me because I can't remember who's a, it is. But and I know the guy that played Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake, is going to be
Oh,
there
okay.
as well.
Nice.
Terrible with names, so I can't remember, but I know he's going to be there.
So I get it.
So yeah, that's going to be a fun time, and hopefully everyone will come out and see you. Got you and Nate. Come see me, and we'll give you. I have some goodies. I think Nate's going to have some goodies from what I remember talking to him about.
Yeah.
So if you have Nate's book, bring it, and you know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he'll have books and coffee. I'll have to check with him because he has coffee too.
Oh, okay. So I didn't think about that. I'm not. I'm going very basic. I've never been to one of these conferences before.
Yeah.
I bought a black tablecloth. I'm going to make a little QR code for people to scan for my channel. And I have stickers, and I'm probably going to have my laptop up and have my channel running interviews.
Yeah.
It's going to be very basic, I think, but I am going to go live, I think, from what I'm planning to go live on Facebook, TikTok, probably. YouTube Live and me don't get along very well. I've tried it a couple times, haven't had very much success. So it'd probably be TikTok and Facebook.
Yeah.
So for someone who is starting to suspect that they may have abilities of their own, but don't know what to do about it, what's your advice for them?
My advice would be to try to find some place that you can find like-minded people to poke their brains. Like I call them new age shops. I don't know if they go by anything else, but like the shops you can find crystals and books, look at different books. You could always look things up online, but again, everything you read online, I wouldn't just take the first thing you read as what you go with. I mean, I look online sometimes too, but not that I'm the best with Google, but I do like to try to cross-reference the best I can, but I also have like tons of books if I have questions, but I would also say if you wanted to initially try to tap into it, I would say meditation would probably be the easiest thing just so you can actually see if anything comes to you, what comes to you, how you get things, just so you have a better idea of what exactly you want to research. Because sometimes people see, sometimes people hear. Basically, just try to educate yourself, try to get knowledge, whether it's just speaking to people or looking for books or trying to just look things up online.
Okay. So is there a moment in your work that you think of often, one that changed how you see what you do?
Well, there's been a few, but I would say one would probably be my cousin. I'm not going to give his name, but he was a huge skeptic until his father came through.
Oh,
And now he is one of my biggest supporters. If anybody asks questions like, "Oh, what's all this that Morgan's posting online?" He was like, "No, she's the real deal. She's serious." I can sit there now and I can go and read his cards. Apparently things he didn't tell me, but his wife told me. Apparently,
Oh,
things I read for him last year have come through within the past couple months. And she was like, "Remember when you said this?" I'm like, "Nope, not a clue. What did I say?" But just the fact that I knew, like, when you can connect somebody to one of their favorite people that's passed, and it's just like the look that they get, it's kind of, because I used to be a preschool teacher as well. So I guess it's kind of similar to when you teach a kid something new, that like spark in their eye when they actually get it on their own or something just clicks. It's kind of a similar feeling because it may be somebody who's a naysayer, somebody who doesn't believe, is extremely skeptical, but you say something that they're like, "Holy shit." Sorry, I don't know if you're allowed to swear, but
oh,
like,
that's fine.
okay. But they're basically like, "Holy shit, this is real. Like, how would you know that?" Granted, yes, I was related to the person, but did I talk to his father very often? No, I saw him twice a year, if that, and it was more like, "Hi, how are you?" and walking away. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I would say it's more things like that. When you tell people, even if it's somebody you know, things that you have no way of knowing,
yeah,
and even if they are believers and they're not necessarily skeptics, they still sometimes give that look because it's not. And I'm not trying to say that I'm giving them the information. I'm just a conduit. This isn't me getting. I'm just what I get, I give. I'm
yeah.
not, just to be clear, because there may be people watching who don't necessarily know mediums. It's mediums are not like the end all be all psychics that see everything. Psychics do not see it. Every psychics, mediums, everything get things from spirit. But sorry, I got on my own little pig
No,
trail there.
that's perfectly fine.
I would say that was one of the moments, my cousin, because he was a huge skeptic. And for years, I'd be going over there reading his wife's cards, terrifying his son because he doesn't like any of this stuff, freaks him out. It's okay, he's an adult, he can deal with it. And for years, he would see me do it, and then finally one day he's like, "All right, you can read my cards." And then, like I said, when I read cards, sometimes spirit comes through. So in that same sit down, his father came through, and yeah.
Wow, that's yeah. That would that would I think that would that would change my perspective as well if that happened.
Yeah.
So I think I know you mentioned something about portals and mirrors. So I figured we go into that little into that little rabbit hole. Is now in your opinion is there lots of different portals, or is it limited, or are they certain places?
You've seen his show, multi-point questions all the time. So portals honestly can be anywhere. You could honestly be in your house. I also believe if people wanted to, they could create a portal. Because I will say in my room alone, one came here. I don't like it. It's and I think it's because of the way it's built. So I'm staring at it now. So if you keep seeing me look
Oh,
off, it's one of those closets that the door folds open, but it's a mirrored closet, and I don't like that closet being closed, so I've always had it open, so it's two mirrors back to back. But the
oh,
thing is, whatever wants to come through there typically comes through there, even though I try to block it. But then I have another portal that was my great grandmother's mirror, but I use that to scry with. But nothing ever comes through that mirror because I've already set down my ground rules of what that mirror is allowed to do. But I think portals can be anywhere. They can be in anybody's house. I've been in locations like the Shanley Hotel in New York. I think there's three portals there. They have a scrying mirror, which I don't think they advertise as a portal, but it's definitely a portal. If spirit can come through and transfigure on your face and change your face when you're sitting there, it's definitely a portal. Then they also have a portal upstairs that's just in a closet because they're not always mirrors. Portals can just be spots, and I believe they have one in the basement. So portals don't necessarily have to be tied to mirrors. It's just mirrors technically tend to be a vessel for portals. Not all mirrors, it's just some tend to. What
I was
creates
going to
them
ask you
exactly?
that. If all mirrors were portals,
I would say all mirrors have the potential to be portals, but I feel like some of it too is, in my opinion, mirrors hold energy. So if you think about it, if you move into a house and there's mirrors, I feel like they hold energy. So if you think about it, you move into a house, typically there's a mirror already built into the bathroom. So even though, just like actually the land itself can hold energy, but mirrors can, I feel, particularly too. I don't like buying used mirrors. Like I said, I have
that's
one that's my grandmother's, but that's because, well, it was my great grandmother. So it's been in this family since like the 40s or the 50s.
yeah,
I don't believe it's much older than that. So, but no, I feel like mirrors, something about it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the newer mirrors, the older mirrors, but something about the glass itself. in my opinion, can hold energy, but also would be a great conductor to make a portal. Do I think all mirrors are? No. But say if you move into a house, you buy a house, the bathroom vanity's already there, and for some reason you just hate the feeling of the bathroom. You don't know who lived there before you.
Yeah,
Their worst arguments could have taken place in the bathroom of all places.
true.
But portals can be anywhere. I've also heard recently that closets are portals, and I didn't know that before, but it makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah, because there are a lot of times, well, reports of different hauntings. Things are coming out of the closet. So I wonder, you know, to me it makes sense.
It does, and I don't know how I've never thought of it before. I think just because the main portal I've dealt with my most of my life is part of a closet, so I just took it as the mirror because it's the double mirror on the
Closet.
closet.
Yeah. Now, do you can you make a portal putting two mirrors together? I've always heard that. I don't know. In your opinion, can that
I forget. Nate's gonna. Nate knows the name. Psychomanthium, I think, right?
maybe? I've heard
Or is
that.
that like a whole mirrored room? I've heard you can do that with portals, but also I'd imagine you can do that with mirrors to create a portal, but I'd imagine you could also just create a portal just with intention. But that also goes as far as how much you believe intention works.
Yeah.
I believe you do everything with some sort of intention. It's just some people just may not be aware that they do. There's intention to everything you do. So if you're looking at a mirror and you're hoping spirits come through there, whatever can travel through there, why would that not be an open invitation? Just like if you open the door, you hear a knock, but there's nobody there, you're not supposed to open the door, right? Because it's
Yeah.
basically inviting things in. Why would you not have the same thing if you're trying to get something to come through a mirror?
One of something that just came into my head was now, you know, you were talking about water being, you know, a conduit.
Mhm.
Well, when you look into water at certain times, it reflects just like a mirror.
It does.
So,
Yep.
yeah, that just came into my head. I'm like, oh, I never put that two and two together. That,
Because water can be used to scry too, just like mirrors can.
yeah.
So can flames.
Oh, I've never heard that. I never.
Yep.
So I'm learning a little bit tonight because I didn't realize that. You have just a couple more questions for you.
Mhm.
Now, beyond Vermont, what other conferences or events are you attending in 2026?
I wrote a list. It's the first time I'm prepared. So I believe it is the one in Vermont that you mentioned, that I won't lie. I just wrote Vermont. I figured you could say the name, the
Yeah,
sci-fi.
the Vermont Horror, Fantasy, and Sci-Fi Expo.
Yes, that one. Thank you. And then I believe the Paranormal Truth Seekers in Nashua on August 1st. And then we have in Wisconsin, Broadhead Bearded Brawl on June 5th and 6th.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, those are the solidified things so far, but Nate's the one going to those. I just tag along.
You're the tag along.
Yeah, except for Broadhead. We were both invited to that. So we'll be
Yeah.
doing an investigation there with one of the other people.
Oh, nice. I've heard a lot about Broadhead. I've want to eventually get there. I have like a list of 50 different locations now that I've been doing these interviews
Yeah.
that and becoming more involved that I want to go to now. I'm like it's
Yeah.
going to take me years to go to all of these places. But so for anyone watching who wants to follow your work or connect with you, where can they find you?
I'm really bad with social media. I'm sure you've been warned of this.
Yes.
My face my Facebook. So Morgan Caldwell, and it's a picture of me and Nate. Actually, so you can tell what it is. There we go. My profile
And that's
picture is this picture, but Morgan Caldwell, and then my TikTok that I think I've only posted like 6 times in the entirety of TikTok is morgs_325. And I couldn't tell you my Instagram. I have to ask my teenager to show me how to post things every time. So
no.
just Facebook and TikTok.
With Instagram, the one thing that I find that I don't like, and it says I can do it, but I can have never figured it out, is like posting ahead of time. Like I figured out how to upload, and I can instantly put it out. But to schedule a post, I don't see the option like all the other platforms. Drives
I
me
don't
crazy.
know.
But
I know
anyway,
you
that's a
know.
side note.
Yeah. No, I know you can do it on Facebook too, but I've not a clue how to do it.
I figured all the others out. It's just Instagram, and you'll probably notice, anyone listening, that I post the least amount of time on Instagram because I can't schedule it out.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I'll put all those links in the description below in case anyone wants to connect. I thank you for coming on tonight. It's been a fascinating conversation. If you want to follow Morgan, make sure that you check out her Facebook, her TikTok, or Instagram. And if you haven't already, if this episode gave you chills, made you think, or just made you a believer, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so that you'll never miss an episode of The Common Historian. Also, if you're going to be in Vermont at the end of April, Morgan will be at the Vermont Horror, Fantasy, and Sci-Fi Expo, April 25th and 26th. I'll be there. Nathaniel Elwell will be there as well. Come find us and say hi. And remember, history never truly dies. It just finds new ways to haunt us. Till next time, keep digging into the darkness.